Hello, friends. Good morning, good day, good afternoon, good night, wherever you're in the world. This is Javi, and I am the host of this podcast, Merging Minds Powered by Works. Here, one more episode. Today, it's super exciting. Today, we're going to talk about something that's always been important, but lately it became more relevant than ever. It's mental wellness, and for that, I've invited the expert that I know in not only in the localization industry, but overall that knows the most about this field. Today with us, we have the beautiful, amazing, and intelligent, and crazy, full of energy, Laura. Laura.
Hello. I hope I have energy since it's quite early here in California this morning. But I've had my strong coffee, so I'll try to bring as much energy as I can to this conversation. Thank you, Javi. It's so nice to be here.
It's great to have you here. So I would like you to introduce yourself. Tell our listeners who you are, what is your mission, what are you doing? Because I know you, and I know you've built a company recently, and you're helping other companies out there in the field of mental wellness. So
Yeah. So I run a company called LDC Wellbeing. After my name, Laura and DeCook. My nickname was LDC when I was at Google for 10 years. Everyone called me LDC. But so I started LDC Wellbeing about 2 years ago now to bring mental health advocacy and education to companies, organizations, universities throughout the globe. And previously, I'd spent a long career in both the film and the tech industries. I went to film school a long time ago and worked in the film industry. I always say my claim to fame was working on Star Wars, Revenge of the Sith, which was supposed to be the last Star Wars film, but we all know it wasn't. But I left to join the tech industry. And worked in tech for a while. So I dealt with a lot of burnout and just anxiety in both of those industries, both high demanding industries. So that's how I ended up just really becoming involved in the mental health, mental well-being world and leaving corporate to start my company.
so you're Laura the cook. You wake up one day and you say, like, there's something that doesn't match in my head with what I'm doing and with what I want to do.
Yeah.
What inspires in you that transition from the tech industry and the film industry into mental health advocacy?
Yeah, it was lived experience. It was really, personal lived experience with mental health issues in myself and my family. There's even substance abuse in my immediate family. So, it was always something that I had lived with and something that I didn't really recognize in myself until I went on a mental health break when I spent 10 years at Google. As I mentioned before, I was at Google, and it was probably like my 8th year at Google that I started to really notice the signs of burnout. And I said, what is going on with me? Like, I'm anxious all the time. Like, I'm just not sleeping well. And there were some, personal issues going on with my family at the time. And I just, I needed a break. I really needed a break. And it actually took me having a mental breakdown in the office. I was living in Singapore and I just returned. Maybe 6 months later, I had my first mental breakdown in the office. And it was during this 3 months off. I took a mental health break that I started talking to other people about what I had been going through. And it was like, I always say it was like the Me Too movement. Everybody that I talked to said, hey, me too. I've been dealing with that too. In these fast paced industries like tech, like film, people are bringing their laptops, everywhere they go. They're checking their phones first thing in the morning. They're checking their phones at night. They're always plugged in. And it just didn't seem like a sustainable way to live. So when I started talking to people about what I went through, they would say, same with me. Like, I feel like I'm going to have a breakdown at any time. So it really inspired me to just keep that conversation going. When you're not alone, when you know that it's not just you, you say, hey, there's something that needs to be fixed here.
Yes, I understand. I understand. Like, for those listening out there, I met Laura around 3 years ago now. We're recording in April 2024. I met her around 3 years ago. We were organizing a panel, right? I think it was like more or less at the end of the pandemic, let's say late 2021, when the world was starting to open up and like people were mega burned. And then that horrific pandemic had a huge impact on everyone mentally and many aspects of our life. I mean, luckily mentally and also physically, because that would have been even worse. But yeah, and then I met Laura through a friend. She was working at Expedia, and she built from scratch a whole mental wellness infrastructure within that company, which is something that I'm super proud of you. I'm super thankful to you for, and because you brought that into my life as well. This is awesome that I'm working. But we all mention mental wellness, the importance of mental wellness, therapy, etc. But let's define mental wellness. How does Laura DeCook define mental wellness, and why does you think that it became such a hot topic when it's always been there? Like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
always been there, but we haven't really tackled it until now. Like, for example, I was listening the other day to a radio and to a sports program on the radio, and they were talking about mental wellness status in high performance sports people now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
How before, when you were nervous or you were like you couldn't, you still have to go out there and play whatever, nobody really cared, and it was like, hey, you're weak if you do this, right? So this is the world we're living in today. So for you, how do you define this mental wellness, and
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, I always say that one silver lining during the pandemic was that people started talking about mental health and mental well-being. You know, back before the pandemic, I felt like it was just this kind of culture that was go, 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 go. I mean, all over the world, you know, not just here in the US where I'm based, but like, you know, it was just this nonstop go, 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 go. Let's not talk about our feelings. Let's not talk about our emotions. Let's just get the work done. And, you know, I think the pandemic, people started, you know, it really affected everyone regardless of where you live. You're, you know, we it kind of equalized all of us because we all started talking about mental health and talking about how, you know, this pandemic was affecting us mentally, and like you were saying, not just physically. So I feel like, you know, it was just kind of like the great reset, for lack of a better way of saying it, where people said like, hey, you know, people are not doing well. Like our employees are not doing well. They're scared, they're worried, they're, you know, everybody all of a sudden was at home, and, you know, parents having to, you know, be caretakers for and homeschoolers while they were, you know, working full-time jobs. And people started saying, you know, this is not sustainable. Like, we need to stop and think about how this is affecting us all, you know, mentally. So, you know, that's when, you know, a lot of companies, such, you know, as an Expedia Group at the time, we were really lucky in a way because we had been proactive about building a mental health program and a mental well-being program. I started it from a grassroots level way back before the pandemic, a couple of years before. So, you know, all of a sudden people wanted to talk about their mental health and how they were
was it
doing.
like a
So,
side, excuse me to stop you, was it like a
yeah.
side thing you were doing on top of your job, and then you just went fully on it, if I can
Yeah,
ask?
well, actually, it's kind of funny because I was not hired to be a well-being specialist or a well-being expert at Expedia Group. I was hired to be an office manager, and this was right after my you know, kind of mental health issues that I was dealing with, and I knew I needed to kind of start and, you know, somewhere and kind of work my way back up because I, you know, at Google and other companies I was at, I was, you know, always trying to, you know, work my way up the corporate ladder. But I talked to my manager at Expedia and I said, hey, can we use some of our office budget to run some like mental well-being trainings? And she said, yeah, she thought that was a great idea. But it was funny because, you know, people back then, you know, 5 years ago, weren't really talking about mental health. So I said, let me ease my way into this conversation by starting with like, let's bring in a nutritionist. Then let's bring in like a meditation class. Then let's bring in like someone who's going to talk to parents about mindful parenting. And then I said, let's do a couple of sessions on mental health. And when we sent the survey results out, everybody was responding more mental health, talks, and we need to be talking about mental health more. We need to be talking about burnout and corporate fatigue and all of that kind of stuff. So it just one thing led to another, and I was flown out to see the CEO, and I said, we need to be talking about mental health. And I just heard about this mental health first aid, which I know we'll go into in a little bit, but I just heard about this program, and I said, hey, why don't we bring mental health first aid to the company and get them trained in mental health first aid? And he said, that sounds great. Like, here's budget, run a pilot program. And it was really successful. So it led to me becoming the first well-being specialist.
Can you tell us a little bit what was on that first initiative? What was in that first program and some initiatives that you had there?
Yeah. So, well, we did, we had this well-being month, and it started, as I was saying, with like the nutritionist and everything. And then we started doing a pilot program in all of our like main hubs. So we had Australia, India, London, or England, gosh, where else? Canada, and the US. We had a number of people trained in mental health first aid. So for those of you who don't know what mental health first aid is, it's a program. It's a certification program. It teaches people how to recognize the signs and symptoms of someone struggling with their mental health, and it can be like recognizing it in yourself or in others, and how to appropriately support them until they can obtain professional help. So we ended up doing this pilot program, and we had about 100 people trained at the end, and they were all certified. They got their little certification badges, and that's launched the mental well-being program, because we had these mental health ambassadors at the company who were like, yes, we need more mental health support. And you asked me to define mental wellness, and I always say it's something holistic. It's not just your head, it's not just your mind, it's your physical well-being, it's your social well-being, it's your financial well-being, it's your emotional well-being. So we launched a well-being hub with sections on each 4 of those, so people could get support and know what resources were available to them.
Do you remember some challenges that you faced there, like firstly from people, from management, from...
Yeah, there were challenges, because it's not easy to talk about mental health at work. And, there were always like the legalities involved, like, in the US here, we have these Good Samaritan laws, but it differs by state. Like, how am I crossing a line by talking to my, employee about their mental health? Is that, back at Google, when I was dealing with my mental health, and I tried to open up to my managers and even HR to tell them, things are not good with me right now and I need support, they said, we don't talk about that at work. That's not something we talk about. That's something you would talk to a therapist about. Here's the EAP phone number. And I went, whoa, okay. Like, I was kind of embarrassed that I even told them what was going on in my head and back home with my family. And, the same happened, at Expedia, where, I wanted, everyone to be like, yay, come on, let's talk about mental health. But people were like, I don't know if that's appropriate at work. But we had some amazing senior level executives who supported me. And if it wasn't for them, and it wasn't for my mentor, a woman named Lori Hoffman, who was my mentor at Expedia Group, I don't think the program would have launched, because we had like the VP of communications saying like, hey, this is important. Like, we need to let her do this, and talking to the CEO and talking to the head of HR and saying, and when she opened up about her story, and then we had other senior executives like telling their stories in town halls and all company meetings, people said, hey, if these executives are talking about it, it must be okay. But there was always some pushback, like,
that's where I'm. That's sorry to have jumped in here, but
yeah, no worries.
Something was coming into mind. Like, by what you're telling us, you were very lucky that in a huge corporate environment like the Expedia Group is, this is where you really started developing the program, what you're doing right now, right?
Yeah.
You found support from big executives out there, right? But I'm thinking like because what you do is exportable, and by what you tell me, you're working with other smaller or medium-sized companies who might not be so open to do this,
Yeah.
but they need it. What would you tell them? What would you tell those executives? Hey, stop it. Open your
Yeah.
mind. How would you face it? Tell us.
It's such a great
In
question
this,
because I
yeah.
actually, yeah, I had a meeting with a company last week, and I could tell they were a little reluctant because I dove right into mental health first aid, and I said, I think every company should have certified mental health first aiders, and we do talk about subjects that can be uncomfortable. We talk about self harm. We talk about suicide. We talk about psychosis. We talk about some major issues when we get into crisis, overdose. There's an opioid crisis in the country. So we talk about naloxone and how people should be carrying it. And I could see that he was tensing up when I was talking about this. And I said, sometimes you need to start with baby steps and maybe not go full on into the mental health first aid, and maybe do like my company, for instance, does 1 hour lunch and learn workshops. So we do one mental health 101. And we're doing that for a big company during Mental Health Awareness Month next month. And they said, hey, we don't really want to talk too much about suicide. We don't want to talk too much about substance abuse. We don't really want to, get into that. And I said, okay, let's talk about anxiety. Let's talk about depression, because those are two of the most common mental health issues, throughout the globe. According to the World Health Organization, billions of dollars are spent on missed work days and people dealing with mental health issues. So why don't we ease into these conversations by doing these let's talk about mental health workshops. We have one on burnout and resilience. We have one on emotional intelligence, one on the art of listening, and just how important developing listening skills are. So I say, start with these baby steps, but do something. You can't afford to do nothing in
Mhm.
this society with inflation and all of these issues, wars that are going on. We need to be talking to employees
Mhm.
about their mental health, because people are holistic human beings. They're not just workers. They're not just going to come into work and forget about who they are. These things are always in their head. And if they see that their company is supporting them, even with these baby steps, even with these workshops, they're going to feel like, hey, this company cares about me. They care about my well-being. They don't just see me as, a robot coming in to do my work.
Yeah, yeah. So once that's thanks for letting us know. Like you, so baby steps, start with the basic stuff, and then do a little bit more introspection, do a little bit more research, and then go drop in other stuff.
Yeah.
That's good. So, and that's great. Those are great advices to start. Breaking that barrier of like, hey, I'm concerned about this thing. I know it's important, whatever. But once you've gone through that, through the things that you just mentioned right now, through the topics that you just mentioned right now, how do you think companies can really start creating a culture that fosters their mental wellness and
Yeah.
supports employees' mental health needs? How what would you tell them?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it definitely comes from the top down. Like, if you don't see your, higher level executives practicing mental well-being or good mental health, it's gonna trickle down to the company. So I think I always say, just openly talking about it, or openly like setting guidelines, even with managers. Like, we have this one workshop called Leading the Way to Mental Well-being. So like, starting with yourself, like focusing on your own mental well-being while also looking after your team. So teaching managers how to lead with care and concern, starting these 101, or sorry, one-on-one meetings with how are you, like,
Hmm.
hey, Javi, how are you doing, rather than, okay, so tell me what's going on with the project, what's going on with this, just starting with like, hey, I'm a human, you're a human, like, what's going on with you, and then talking about work. But I think just making sure that the employees know what's available to them. So many, in the past it was like, hey, gym reimbursement. now we're taking care of people's well-being. But like, if you don't have partnerships with, mental health organizations, we had one with Talkspace at Expedia, and we
Mhm.
said, hey, we care about your physical well-being. Here's a gym reimbursement, but also here's free therapy. And, or if you can't afford, if you're a small company, here's resources to go. So many people are have these EAPs, but I didn't even know what EAP stood for. It's employee assistance provider, but I did not know what it stood for at Expedia Group. And when I asked a question in one of the town halls, when I kind of was kicking off everything, I said, what is the company doing to support employee well-being? The CEO didn't say a thing. He didn't know what to say. So he diverted to the head of communications, and she said EAP. And I'm like, EAP, what is that? Like, so I looked up EAP. First, the site was broken. So I said, okay, we need to fix the site. Okay, 5 therapy sessions. That's interesting. I wonder if people know at the company that this is available to them. And so many people did not.
Okay.
So it needs to be clearly, like, we had a well-being hub. We launched a well-being hub at Expedia Group. So it was easy to say, like, hey, I'm not doing well. What does the company offer me?
This really makes, yeah, it's very interesting that you said you launched this hub, and like, and since we're talking about it, like once you've gone through these barriers, once you've done this, hey, we really need to help. It looks like in the world of today, in which technology is everywhere, and it's easier to assist people through
Yeah,
technology. We've moved away from that image of, hey, I am going to my therapist. I don't feel good. I have to go lay down on the couch. My
yeah, yeah.
notes, etc. Right? So let me ask you, since you've done all these things, and since you build all these things, all this hub, and you help contributing with, what is the role of technology nowadays in helping people with their mental wellness? Well, how do you see it? Like,
I mean, technology, it's funny because I see technology as like a double-edged sword. Like, it's so beneficial in so many ways. Like, I mean, with my phone here, I could message when I had Talkspace, I could message my therapist and be like, oh, this is great. Or, but we talk a lot about digital detox in my workshops, how important it is to get off technology. And I do think, wow, it's great, that we have all of these, resources, at our fingertips. But I do think that people spend too much time on technology and not enough time like getting out and, even getting outside of the house, and the
I
younger
do, I
generations.
do, yes,
I mean,
I
I'm
do.
me too. I some days, I work from home, so some days I don't leave my house at all. And it's just getting out and even taking a walk around the block is so good for like my mental well-being and kind of a reset. But I think it's great, but people, spend a lot of time doom scrolling now with the news, and being so plugged into
Tell
everything
me,
that's going on.
I found myself yesterday night doing that, and
Yeah,
I had on my iPad here a book that I was reading. And I was like scrolling on my, and I was like, why? I
yeah,
threw it on. I continued reading, and I realized I realized that I was doing this,
yeah,
and I see it more like I'm in my early 40s, and I am one of, I would say that I'm a millennial, and I'm one of the sons of the app economy.
yeah,
So I've seen the world before this, although it was for
yep,
20 years, I've seen the world before this, right? And now it's difficult for me to not see it, right? But
yeah.
how do the new generations that are coming up, and then one day will be in power in this world, get detox from the things that they've suckled from the cradle, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yep. We actually, for anyone who's interested, we have in May, if you go to my website, ldcwellbeing.com/events, we're doing a bunch of events for May Mental Health Awareness Month. And we have a parent educator who I've known for years, who talks a lot about how growing up with social media, she has young children, and how it's kind of doing a disservice to the younger generation, because the FOMO, like the fear of missing out, the comparisons on social media, the anxiety, that it's bringing kids. And there was a really interesting book that I need to read that was just released about a week or two ago, called The Anxious Generation. And it's how technology is making these younger generations like anxious, more anxious. And, back in the day, we used to be like, our parents would say, during summer break, go out and play, see you at dinner. And we'd be out for, 8 hours,
Yeah.
okay, the dinner bell rings, come on, let's come in. And now, parents are so afraid to let their kids
Yes.
out of their sight, out of their house. So they're constantly on their Kindles, they're constantly, on their phones, they're constantly on their
Yes.
laptops.
I started reading a book recently, and I'm gonna show it here. It's Spanish. It's in
Ooh.
Spanish. Oh my god, I didn't see
Uh-oh.
it.
Yeah.
But it's called literally. It's called you. Oh, you don't see it properly anyway.
Yeah.
It's just called "You're Fucking Up Your Life." And it speaks about it's written by a Spanish psychologist
Yeah.
called let me say his name since I called his name Buenaventura del Charcolea. It's in Spanish. I think it came out recently, and it talks about all this wave of positivity we're experiencing today nowadays, and how you need to be on that positive wave all the time and not experience other human feelings that are acceptable to have and are acceptable to live. And a lot of that comes from what you just mentioned, that the psychologist was pointing out the bad impact of using social media in a way in which you compare with each other. And I am subject of this because, and I confess, I have a life that is not the common life of being at home, working at home. As those who follow me know that I am more of like a digital nomad. I'm everywhere today. I'm recording from the United States. Next week I'll be in Asia. The week after I'll be in Spain. And that is beautiful, but that's what I pursued in life since I was a kid, and I'm doing it now. And I'm showing it on social media, but that's at the end comparing. That's it's gonna take people to say like, hey, I want to be happy, I want to be like this, and I want to do what he's doing, all these things.
Yeah.
It's a double-edged sword that you say
Yeah.
always, but also on the other hand, I'm also showing the world, and I'm also showing people this, and it's
Yeah.
also
Opening their minds. Yeah.
yes, and helping me and my business to grow because of the following, because of the relationships that it makes me have as well, right?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
what can we do?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. I know. What can we do? We've got, in a way, we have to embrace it. And I was so scared when AI started, people started talking about AI, a lot last year. And I was like, AI is so scary. Like, I don't like this, because I'm actually in my late 40s. So, I didn't grow up with any, technology. I did, any, we were taking 10 library books out of the college library and putting them in our backpack to write our papers. And now, everything's just, a search. But I have to admit, like, I've been using AI for a lot of stuff lately, for lack of a better way of saying it. And it's pretty awesome.
yeah,
So, I just wonder, with kids, and I ask my friends who have, kids in school, like, aren't the teachers going to know like that kids are using AI to get their, answers for everything? But I guess there's ways that they can figure it out
yeah,
if they're
yeah,
using
yeah.
AI. Yeah.
Yeah. So like well, thanks for pointing that out, Laura. And to me, I have to praise on about you and to tell those listeners that what you're doing is really inspiring. And Laura, what caught my attention always on her job is how she helps all types of companies, whether it's a big size company, a multinational, a medium size, or a smaller size, to
Yeah.
build mental wellness programs, right? Which
Mhm.
is it's incredible. It's all on the line of the things we've been talking today, right?
Yeah.
And I want to ask you, because there might be listeners out there listening today who might want to get in touch with you to help them build a mental wellness programs at whatever level it is. Started, as you mentioned before, like top end kind of program, whatever. What do you think are the key components of a comprehensive mental wellness program, if you can tell us?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, I do believe that, these holistic approaches are the best, the financial well-being, the physical well-being, etc. But I truly believe that every company, no matter how big or small, needs to have mental health ambassadors, whether that's one person, if you have a tiny company, or the entire company, or maybe it's just your HR department trained, or maybe it's just your, top level, senior executives trained. But I'm just going to get pretty, deep for a minute. But suicide is an epidemic. This opioid crisis, especially in the US, is an epidemic, and we need to be open and honest about people's mental well-being. And I think having someone who knows how to recognize who might not be doing well, who might be, we talk a lot about like absenteeism and presenteeism in our classes. And presenteeism is when you see an employee showing up to a meeting just not acting like themselves. They're there physically, but mentally they're not. It's how to start that conversation and say, hey, like I noticed, you're not contributing in meetings like you used to, or hey, I noticed you're not coming for coffee anymore. Do you want to talk? And really, one big thing that we talk about a lot is, how important being a non-judgmental listener is. And just, having those people that can talk. We're not teaching people how to be therapists. We're not, telling people you have to learn how to, fix someone, but it's how to listen, truly listen to someone and help them get the
Mhm.
appropriate support, because companies are losing so much money on these absenteeism and these days off, and these people that the like losing what is it retention, with people leaving because they don't feel supported by their companies, or they don't feel supported by their managers. And it was a huge reason why I left Google after 10 years, was I just didn't feel like I was going to get the support that I needed. And I could keep doing my work and keep getting my paycheck, but knowing that I wasn't being supported as a holistic human being was the reason I left.
Mhm.
I didn't want to leave. Like, I was well liked there. I was a high performer, but when I started pushing back on work, and instead of, someone saying, hey, Laura, what's going on? I noticed you're not, performing how you used to. It was like, hey, let's put you on a performance plan and push you out
So
because
it's very
yeah,
interesting. So any company that wants to start one of the programs to care about the mental wellness of their employees, like sort of like the key line and the key thing to have there is a person that is a person
yeah,
cares,
yeah,
listens, and can help you without being a therapist, because this is very important. Like
yeah,
experts as itself, and I'm seeing it by my own experience. Not everybody's an expert in helping you in the way you in to get out of your that mental status thing, right?
yeah.
But what we need as a company, what a company is somebody that can be like, I think you should do it, right? Are those key components that I mentioned okay?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, we always say, like, you don't want to give advice. You want to give information. You want to give reassurance and information, because, advice is kind of like, we always say it's like your inner adolescent comes out and it's like, hey, who are you to tell me what I should do? What works for Javi may not work for me.
Yes.
So, it's like, hey, I noticed this. Would you like to talk about it? Hey, did you know there's these resources, or have you gone on, this website, or have you, even sitting down with the person and being like, let's do a Google search and see what free resources are available in your community. But, it really is, we're hearing more and more on the news about, mental health and mental, well-being. And I think, it really just takes one caring individual to help someone. And I think everybody wants to help people.
Yes.
I mean, we want to be useful. So I think, if you're not going to train someone and, get them certified in mental health first aid, just teaching, a class on the art of listening, having or having someone read a book on, like, how to help people
Yeah.
in need. Yeah, I was obsessed with self-help books in my 20s, so it's no wonder, that I ended up switching my career, because I always wanted to, know what was going on in my head and, like, figure it out. But I also have always wanted to help others and, be useful. I always say, we have this one time on this, earth, if you believe that. Maybe we have many times, but, we all need to support one another, and we all need to be there for one another. And we're all, you never know what someone's going through. They may look like they've got it all together on the outside, but on
Yeah.
the inside they could really be struggling. So being a non-judgmental listener and learning how to listen, actively is so important.
Yeah. We always invite, or we like we always try to invite to our podcasts important leaders in our industry who have a mission and want to make a difference. So let's say, right, people that are different, people that are human leaders, human-centered leaders, right? And to those leaders that are listening today, and in a few words, Laura, because I don't want to take more of your time, I just want to ask you, what role can our leaders and managers play in supporting mental wellness of their
Yes.
teams? I think this is a tricky and difficult one, and I need you to answer it in a few words. I know because not all the leaders, unfortunately, are empathetic
Yeah.
or supporting, or you cannot imagine how many people I'm listening to all the time. I fucking hate my boss.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
in an ideal world, and let's try to advocate for those ideas. And maybe if we can make a difference and we can just inspire one person to, hey, holy shit, I might not be doing it
yeah,
right.
yeah.
What would be the role? And just tell me
You
in
know,
a few words.
I just thought of this, 5 words. It starts from the top. Like,
Oh,
honestly, it
yeah.
starts from the top. Like, you've got to, tell your employees how important it is to, tune out at the end of the day, focus on their lives, focus. You're going to be a better worker. You're going to be a better employee if you're a happy and healthy employee. So, and companies are going to keep their employees if they're treating them well. So, really, it starts from the top, I think, is the best way
So
to.
they need to really think about it, although they are not predispositioned to do it. So please, leader out there listening, think.
Yeah. Yep,
it's
exactly.
it's been amazing having you here. And in order to say bye to you and to all the guests that we have in the podcast, we always try to ask them what we call the fast 4 or 5 questions. So you describe yourself, right? So the first fast four, you need to reply this in like super fast. What was the last thing you Googled, Laura?
New printers, new inexpensive printers, because we ordered those this morning.
That's awesome. When you were 12 years old, what did you want to be back then?
I wanted to be an actress.
Oh, name a band and a song that define you.
Oh my God, Javi, I can't answer this quickly. A band and a song I'll do Sublime. Loving is what I got.
All right, of course. And in using one word, how do you describe the future? Okay, 2 words.
Scary and exciting.
All right, that's awesome. Well, thank you, Lara, for being here with us today. I think your take in mental wellness and what
Yeah.
you do is trailblazing. I am thankful to have met you. I'm thankful because you have inspired me to do some change and to think in the past. It's an ongoing process. It's a whole thing that it matters, but you have to start, and you've helped me start it. So I am really thankful. I'm thankful to have you here. So, dear friends, if you want to talk to a mental wellness expert, I recommend you to go and talk to Laura. She's
Please, yeah.
reach out to her on LinkedIn. She replies the messages all the time. Like, what is your email, Laura?
My email is lauradcwellbeing@gmail.com. I was going to say LDC. lauradcwellbeing@gmail.com, or message me on
Feel
ldcwellbeing.com.
free to message her. She's always replies, and invite her to talk. She's
Thank
gonna
you.
give you good solutions. Bye, everybody. Until the next time.
Thank you.